Awesome. The next page is then our vegetable planting guide. This is specifically for Travis County. So if you're in another county, the A&M Extension Program might have another guide for you, but this is pretty much good for Central Texas. Again, you can kind of see there's like a pattern, in my opinion, of our spring planting season is really that March, April. That's where all the warm weather things can be grown, so corn, cucumber, eggplant, tomato, pepper, all those nice ones. And then September, October is another big one, where that's where you can plant all your winter veggies, so your brassicas, your beets and carrots and all that kind of stuff. Some folks do say we have a third planting season, and that's kind of that January, February time where you can kind of put some of those colder plants into the ground kind of before the heat comes. I've just never had good luck with that because the heat kind of keeps sneaking up on us. So I really recommend having your, like, again, your broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, all those things. You plant those September, October, and then your warm weather plants, you can kind of plant those March, April. We're kind of nearing almost the end of that now, so if you want to put some stuff in the ground, April is definitely the time to do it. There are some summer vegetables, okra obviously being the biggest one, which not everyone loves okra, but it is really a great plant to grow in the summer. Some like black-eyed peas, those southern peas, grow really well in the summer as well. Pumpkin is actually a really good one to put in the ground. You can kind of look in here and see, there's not much after May, but there are a couple in here that you can kind of put in the ground after that. Squashes and stuff being one of those. A note, so there are two terms that kind of get thrown around that I just want to clarify as well. The days to germination and days to maturity. So days to germination is from when you put the seed in the ground and from when it becomes a sprout with its first real leaf. The first true leaf, I guess you can say, the first leaf that'll pop up is kind of like from the actual seed, but then when it has its first true leaf, that's the day to germination. And the days to maturity is from when you put the seed in the ground to when you can actually harvest a fruit or harvest that plant. So these are really important because, again, with that seasonality thing, you want to make sure you're planting something where if you know that it's going to get hot and that plant's going to get attacked by aphids, you don't want to plant it too late in the season or else you kind of lose the opportunity to harvest it. Same with the frost. If you plant like tomatoes in October, that frost is going to kill them the second that happens, and that's not good for those tomatoes either. And then also thinking if your growing season is long enough for the vegetables to mature if they're planted from seed. So if you're really hell-bent on planting everything from seed, which is totally fine, you just have to remember that things like tomatoes, if you plant them from seed, are they going to have enough time to grow before it gets really, really hot or before pest hits or something like that? So a lot of the times people will actually start tomatoes indoors in like January or February, and then they can get them in the ground early and move them like that. So it's just kind of thinking, again, that whole garden planning idea, making sure you have enough time from the day that you plant it from a seed to the day to maturity.
We planted beets, and they turned out really well, but I wasn't sure when to pull them.
That's a good question.
Some of them just start coming out of the ground.
Yeah. A lot of people ask me that. They're like, I don't know when to harvest stuff. I mean, the best thing I can say to you is that some plants will tell you when to harvest them. So like squashes and watermelons, they'll just fall off the vines. Take them then. With a lot of the root vegetables, they will actually start to kind of pop up out of the ground. You can kind of see the tops of them. They're ready to go. If you want to like be careful and kind of see how big they are, you can scratch the dirt around it to kind of see how big it is. But basically, if you think it's the size that you would see at a grocery store, just pick it. Yeah, that's kind of, it is like really daunting to pick something and you're like, oh, I'm not sure if it's done. And carrots are the same way. I get really nervous with carrots. But I usually just pick one and kind of see how it looks and just plant extra of those sorts of vegetables so you can kind of peek at them throughout the season. It will really help also knowing how long they take that days to maturity though, because a lot of the times some carrots take a lot longer than others, and so if you kind of know, well, that one's a 2-month carrot and that one's a 3-month carrot, you'll kind of get a better picture of when to harvest. But yeah, lettuces and that kind of stuff too, broccoli, like if you see that it's a nice head, like it's probably time to harvest, and if you let it keep growing, it might flower, and that's not good. The next two slides I'm not going to go over too much in depth, but they're basically just a front of a seed packet and the back of the seed packet and kind of translating what a lot of stuff means and looking at like seed spacing and all kinds of stuff like that. I think this one does cross out like this. Most seeds assume that people are going to plant them like in a farm, so they tell you like seed row spacing and that kind of stuff. I don't even look at that because I think of our square gardening or square foot gardening techniques. So you can really plant things closer together than a lot of the seed packets say. They're just assuming that you're doing it in like a huge farming setting, and that's why they have this like seed spacing type thing. But things to really look out for: seed depth. So if you have a really small seed, you should not be planting it more than like 1/8 of an inch down. I usually use my pinky kind of in reference because your pinky from the end to your first knuckle is like an inch. So if you can kind of use that as a measuring tool. Seeds really don't need to go too deep into the ground. Even like beans, those really big ones, they really don't stay more than like 1 or 2 inches down to start germinating. And again, this one does say too, like recommended for mild winters only. Plant 1 to 2 weeks before average last frost. We have that average last frost earlier in the presentation. And also soil temperature, so that's a big thing. A lot of plants, or specifically seeds, require certain soil temperatures in order to germinate properly. So a lot of our summer plants actually need like 70-degree soil in order to germinate. And if you're planting them kind of early in the season when the soil hasn't had time to warm up, they usually won't do well. On the flip side, carrots, for example, the colder the soil for carrots, the sweeter they are. So they actually really like cold soil. So just knowing that kind of nuance with those seeds will help you as well. Great. Well, I'm Ellen Orabone. I am the Sustainable Food Center Grow Local Teaching Garden Coordinator.
And what's your website?
Oh, my website, sustainablefoodcenter.org. And check out the Live Local program site.
Live Local Project.